So that's pretty much it for the 2025 season. You guys have seen almost every tournament that I fished all season. There was one grassroots tournament that I fished that I was exhausted and not having a good time, and I didn't feel like uploading it and uh, publishing a video that I just wasn't really happy about. Even the filming part of it, I just didn't have fun. No, nothing on Mike Husar that hosted it. It was a fine event. It was just that I was getting burned out, especially with the like kind of remote tournaments, because that one you could fish just about anywhere you wanted, and it just kind of was at the end of a long road, and so because of that, long story short, because of that, I didn't upload that video. I had it up, edited and everything, and then I just deleted it. Then there was one other that I didn't upload because I fished hard for 2 days practice and then the tournament at Wapapello, and I caught one fish in practice, little bitty guy. I lost a fish in the tournament, and then I ended up catching a fish in the tournament, which was a great big one. But I just didn't have enough there to feel like I could make a video that was worth watching. So I just scrapped all the footage except for the one big fish catch and made it into a short. So you guys probably saw that anyways. It just wasn't in a long form video. But this season was overall a pretty great success for me. I did by far the best that I've ever done in a tournament season. I want to quickly go through some of the stats from the season, and then we'll get into some other stuff here. So I did 22 live events throughout the season. I did the full 7 tournaments for the Kayak Anglers of Missouri season. I did 6 of the Moyak regular season events. I did the championships for both of those. I did 3 of the Working Man Trails series events. I did the 2 Bearcat Classics that we hosted on Pony. And then I jumped into a Western Missouri Kayak Fishing League that was up here in the northern half of the state. Then I also fished the Big Bass 250, the All-American Kayak Classic, and the Bassmaster Championship Qualifier event that took place at the same time as the Moyak Championship. So obviously, pretty busy season. 22 events total, I think it was. I did do some onlines. I did KMO onlines and the WMKFL onlines. But overall, it was a lot of fun. It was a pretty eventful, packed, busy season, which is kind of what I wanted, as well as finding some pretty good success, because I never really had an off period to reset. I was just the whole time going. Just kept pushing. And so because of that, I never really had a time that, I was out of practice or out of tune of what the fish were doing. So it worked out really well for me. So I'm going to go over some quick statistics for my live events. The onlines, they don't really mean as much to me because it depends a lot on having a honey hole, if I'm being honest. And that's not coming from somebody who's bad at them. I do quite well in the onlines. There's not as much pride in them for me, so I would rather just focus on the live events for this video. So at the end of the season, I had 14 top 10s in the live events out of 21 events that I fished. I had 7 podium finishes, so first, second, or third out of those 21 live events. I had 2 first place finishes in live events, and I won Big Bass one time. Before this season, I had only ever won 2 events total, and I'd only ever won Big Bass once, so I doubled both of those numbers. I don't know how many podium finishes I've had before, and I don't know how many top 10s I've had before, but it can't have been that many. So I set out this season with a goal of winning the intermediate division Angler of the Year with Kayak Anglers of Missouri. They do different divisions. For those of you that don't know, they've got a novice, intermediate, and advanced division, and it's based off your experience. So I was in intermediate this season. I'll be in advanced next season. I was in novice 2 seasons ago. So that's a really great thing for guys that are getting their start, and they are competing against guys that have been doing it for 10 years or more, sometimes. And it really gives you a place to start, so that way you are you're still competing with the whole field, but you're also competing amongst people that should have similar experiences to you. So you're not always being outclassed by experience. So it's a nice thing that they do to help people get into it, and I really, really enjoy that part. So my goal was to win Intermediate Angler of the Year this year, which I was able to do. And going into the Stockton event, and would have been August, I I knew that I was kind of in the running to win overall Angler of the Year, which whenever we went to Stockton, I ended up coming in first place there, and the other two of the other guys, excuse me, that were also in the running for Angler of the Year were came in for second and third. Um, so it kept it really tight, but that really gave me an opportunity to pull ahead a little bit. Going into the last event, which was Mark Twain, I had a few place lead on second place and third place, and so on and so forth. But I went into that knowing that I just needed to do well enough to not lose my lead, and I improved my lead on second and third place and lost my lead a little bit on fourth and fifth place going into that tournament. And the way it all shook out, it was I ended up winning by not a very large margin at all, but I ended up winning the overall Angler of the Year plus the Intermediate Angler of the Year, which was just awesome. And then congrats to Lyle Doobie, who came in second place for Angler of the Year, and he was kind of on my tail all year. I knew that he was one that you never could relax with him right behind you, because he's always pushing to catch up. He's a really good angler. And also congrats to Adam Denningman, who came in third. He's a stud. He's always finishes in the top five. It seems like for AOY. Really, if I'm being honest, I figured that he was going to catch me and win, because he was fishing really well all year, I thought. So that kind of covers the camo season. I was also wanting to go and make my Moyak debut. I'd never fished with them before, so I went into it as a rookie, and this was my rookie season with them, which obviously you only get one rookie season, and so the Rookie of the Year is something where you have 1 year to perform well. Angler of the Year, you have to go and perform really well, better than everybody else, for a year, but you have as many tries as it takes. Whereas Rookie of the Year, you got one shot. Um, Now, a lot of the time, Rookie of the Year, you're just going to have to make a top 20 or top 15 of AOI to win. This year, I don't remember what second place ended in, but I know he's in the top 20 because he's going to be going to the Taney 20 here in the spring. That's Ryland Summer. Me and him battled all season. Whenever I was trying to do the math and trying to figure out what I needed to do, he was always the one that was in consideration for who could catch up to me. I did get an early lead in that Rookie of the Year, but uh, it seemed like he was always right there trying to close the distance. But the way it all shook out, I did end up winning that Rookie of the Year as well, which is, that was a big goal of mine. My secondary goal for the Moyak series was to come within the top 20, so that way I could be in the Taney 20 this spring. I really wanted to make it to that tournament. That's the top 20 anglers go fish Taneycomo and go battle it out there. So I really wanted to make that, and I ended up beating that by a pretty good margin. I came in 8th place overall, and had a lot of room to spare there. I know Rylan also finished in that top 20, so I guess I was shooting a little bit low for the season on what I needed to do in order to accomplish that goal, but it all worked out. I ended up getting the two things that I wanted the most this season, which was Intermediate Angler of the Year and Rookie of the Year, with the two different series that I was fishing. Real quick, I'm gonna go through some of my top baits from this year, and just kind of show them off to you guys real quick, because some of them are pretty cool, and just stuff that I really enjoyed using all year, and stuff that caught me a lot of fish and maybe played big in certain tournaments. So I'll go ahead and run through them real quick. First off was an LS Lures buzz bait. This is in that pacifier color. This was my favorite color to throw all year. This one's just about as beat up as you can get them. But this thing was probably my number one lure. Not probably. This thing was my number one lure all year. I caught tons of big fish on it in practice and fun fishing and tournaments. This here was just a real key bait for me to have tied on all the time. I think I tied it on in May, and other than just changing it out whenever I would wear them out or whatever, which only happened a few times, but other than changing them out then and retying, this thing never came off. This was just definitely, by far, my top lure of 2025. Another one that kind of goes with that is this guy here. This is the Little Buzzard, also from LS Lures. If you look at them side by side, this one's obviously a lot smaller than this one. Just a downsized version of the same thing. I've got the same swim bait trailer on there, same size, but yeah, this one is the Little Buzzard. It's a lot smaller than the full-size buzzbait. This guy was awesome. It kind of came out later in the year. I think he came out with them in August. But I did really well on these for the few months that I did get to fish with them this season. I caught lots of fish on them and even caught some big fish on them, like in tournaments and stuff. So this is definitely going to be a player for next year. But yeah, the buzzbait was definitely my number one lure of 2025. Moving on to my second best lure of 2025 would have been a football bladed jig, also from LS Lures. I fished the pinheads quite a bit as well, but these just kind of blew those out of the water this year for me. In the past, I've always been a pinhead guy, not a football head guy, but this year I just picked up one of these things, had some really great success, and would have been mid-March. I started finding really good success with these, and I just had them tied on all year. I don't throw a lot of bladed jigs on a lot of them, like clear water reservoirs that we're always hitting on these tournament trails. But, I would keep it tied on a lot of the time, and then almost every event it seemed like I would pick up a fish, and a lot of times it was a key fish that I'd pick up on something like this. It's not something that you're always going to want to burn up the bank with on some of those really clear water reservoirs and stuff, but, a lot of times a spinnerbait's going to work better there. But something like that can just get you one more key bite, one more big bite. This color here, this is what they call flex. It's, gold and black with some white. And I've just got this guy on there now. Twin tail grub, like a menace grub, works great too. But this is pretty much the setup that I was using all season long, that guy right there. In the spring, I was throwing an orange one, but most of the season I was throwing that. Whenever I wasn't throwing that because of water clarity or whatever, I was throwing this guy, a dark matter, got some smoke on the back, got some black and purple on the front, and I was always throwing this guy with some kind of a beaver trailer. It wasn't always that guy, but some kind of a beaver trailer, because whenever it's wide and flat like that, and it's kicking, and you hit a tree or something, whenever it's wide and flat, it doesn't let it roll, but if you do like a menace grub, it'll hit and roll a little bit easier. And with that color, I normally was fishing it a lot slower, right along the bottom, just dragging bottom the whole time. So that's why that head looks like that. All the paint beat off of it. But that there would have been probably the second most fish color, and then a fire crawl one is what I fished most of the spring, and had a lot of great success on that as well. Moving on to what would be my third best lure of the year is this guy right here. This is a Little Wizard jig, also from LS Lures. This guy is the rust color. These guys, obviously, it doesn't have a lot of skirt, and I think that's the magic of it. It just looks beat up and gets a lot of bites. This rust color, it's something that seems like a lot of guys aren't really throwing something like that outside of the spring, but just that little bit of orange and brown in there, it looks really natural, and in any kind of clean water, that's what I'm throwing, and I catch a lot of fish on them. This has been probably one of my top lures for several years in a row, pretty much since they came out. But it really shined this year. I never really felt like I got on a really good jig pattern in the tournaments, but I always had one tied on, and it seemed like I always caught a fish on them. Pretty sure that it was a rust. I know it was a Little Wizard, but I'm pretty sure it was a rust color one that saved my day at Wapapello and helped me catch that one great big fish that won me the big bass of the tournament. The trailer kind of changed a lot throughout the year. I did some small craws. I did some small beavers. Some like half Senkos as like a little Ned rig, or I guess not a little, an upsized Ned rig. Stuff like that. Did a bunch of different stuff. But this guy here is a hex bug from Revived Bait Co. I put it on at towards the end of the year. I think it was actually might have been at Pomme de Terre for the Moyak Championship, and caught a few on it like that. It's a pretty sweet little crawl, really, or bug, or whatever you want to call it. Slender and pretty long, so I guess you could stand to bite it down there a little bit, but I didn't have any problems getting bit on it. Moving on to what would be the fourth best lure of my 2025 season, and that would be this guy here, frog, but in particular, this bronze eye spit shad. Um, I absolutely love these things. They're not in production anymore, so if you find some, go ahead and buy them, and if you try them out and don't like them, I know a guy who will buy them off you. I love these things. With that vertical stacked tails there, it doesn't really spread out in the water like a regular frog, but it does help it keel. And with that deep keel that you get there, this thing walks like no other frog. It sets low in the water and just skips back and forth, and that face just spits, kind of like an old chug bug or something like that. But I fished one of these things a lot. I fish it everywhere, and this is what I ended up winning the Moyak event at Bull Shoals on, throwing this thing up into the bushes and you know walking it out, and caught a lot of fish. And this year, I don't know what color they call this, but this is the best color as well, in my opinion. Good luck finding them, though, because I think I bought all of them left. Then moving on to what is my fifth best lure of 2025 is going to be walking bait. Specifically, these two. These guys were great for me all year. They've been my favorites for a couple years now. I didn't really throw a walking bait that much this year, and whenever I did, it seemed like I didn't catch a lot of fish on them, except for a couple of events. But whenever these things became a player, they were very, very important and ended up actually winning me a tournament and pretty well saving my season for Moyak. So first one there is that Megabest Dog X Diamante, and this is in the MB Gizzard color. I know it's pretty beat up there, but this guy right there is one of my favorites. It makes a sound like that, so it sounds like it's to me it kind of sounds like a school of shad or something like that, or a bunch of little ones, and then you get that little bit bigger profile there that just draws a lot of bites. I fish this guy whenever the wind is really low or they're really shallow because of that noise. It's a little bit more subtle than the next one I'm going to show you. This next one here is the one that I did the most damage with, and this is the Reaction Innovations Vixen. My buddy Ryan got this for me for Christmas a couple years back, but this guy here is what I caught most of my fish at the Stockton event on, the Camo one, and I caught several on it in the Moyak event as well. This one's got a lot more solid of a knock, a single knock. So this thing draws them up from deep, and it's really good to throw in the wind. This thing also rides a little bit higher in the water than the Megabass one does. The Megabass kind of sets level and flat. This one kind of rides back and then skips up in the water. So that way, whenever you've got a lot of waves or something, this one still excels. Again, those two, I didn't really fish them that much. I didn't catch a ton of fish on them other than Stockton pretty well. But, I think I took like 11th or maybe 15th or something with Moyak there. And then I went back, I think the weekend later, and won the Camo event there on those baits. They were super important, instrumental to me having the success that I had this season, and won me a pretty good check. And then the one that I'm not sure if it's number 6 necessarily, but it's in the top 10, and it's one that I really ought to talk about because this guy here, kind of like the Spooks, didn't really become a player for almost the whole season until like the last 2 events at Mark Twain Lake. I just never really found a lot of great situations for cranking outside of like occasionally throwing a rock crawler or square bill. But whenever I did pick that guy up at Mark Twain, I ended up locking this thing in my hand for most of the day for really both the events, about half the day in the Camo event and just about the whole day in the Moyak event. And I picked up quite a few fish on it. And this is a crankbait that's painted by Risen Custom Lures. You can find him on Facebook. Risen, Risen. But he does great paint, great work. Really, really excited because I get to work with him for the coming season. We worked it out after I was already fishing his baits before we formed a partnership, but now I'm really, really excited to work with him, and especially because that bait there is sweet, and it did kind of save my season. You know, I didn't really fish this guy all that much, or I didn't really fish any crankbaits all that much this whole season, but this one did become a big player in the last several events of the year. Quickly, I'd like to go over some big baits because that's been something else that I've gotten into pretty heavily in the past couple of years, and I wanted to go over a couple that really were fun to fish this year. I didn't really fish big baits that much in tournaments. I did fish this guy a little bit in some tournaments, but anyways, throughout the whole year, I was fishing this guy a lot while fun fishing. This is a Lanciotti Lures Psycho Gill. This is in a crappie color. I caught a whole lot of fish on this thing this season. Probably like in the hundreds of fish on this guy just in my fun fishing. And I really, really have come to love this bait. It's a wake bait, you know, and you can get it to dive a little bit, but for the most part, it's a wake bait, sets on top of the water. Just a fantastic big bait. It is a little bit heavy to where you need some specialized equipment to use it, but if you've got the equipment, I can't recommend another bait more. The other one that really, really did some damage for me this season is this guy. This is a Spro KGB Chad Shad. I fished this guy a lot in fun fishing and caught a lot of fish on it this year. I don't know if I'd ever caught a fish on this bait before 2025, but I caught a lot while just fun fishing on it this year, and I did use it in a couple of different tournaments, and it did catch me a call at the end of the day at the at the Camo event at Stockton. I got my last cull on this guy on some standing timber. It was an awesome bite, but I was really, really excited about this bait all year, getting to fish it a lot. I probably won't be fishing it much next year because I've got the resin version right there behind me, and so that'll probably take this one's place in my arsenal. I do want to give a big shout out and a thank you to the companies who supported me all this season. LS Lures, you see I'm wearing their stuff right now. They make a lot of the baits that I just really love to fish, and have done everything that they can to support me this season. I couldn't ask for a better partnership from them. And I mean, you guys see it; their baits work. If you watch my videos, you're bound to see me catch fish on something from LS Lures. I couldn't ask for a better partnership. Really, they're really, really great. The other one that really helped me out all year was Pattern Tackle. That's an e-commerce tackle shop based out of Washington, Missouri, so shopping local is always good. He's got a really good selection of a bunch of different stuff. I buy pretty much all my line there. 7 reels, if you like 7 reels, he's got them there. That's where I buy my 7 reels, which, if you guys don't know, has been a new addition to my lineup this year, and I'm a big fan of them for the price. I think they're really great for what you spend on them, you know. I don't know if they're any better than a Corrado, but the ones that I've been buying are about half or even less than half of what you'd pay for a Corrado. So they're really sweet reels. You ought to check them out. 7 and St. Croix are not a sponsor of me. I just really like their stuff. I don't even own a St. Croix rod. I just like the reels. But Pattern Tackle also has a line of tungsten that they sell on their store, and it's the only tungsten that I use. It's great stuff. I love it. Very sensitive, doesn't ever chip. The paint doesn't chip on them. Lasts you forever as long as you don't break off, of course. They call it Chalk Dog tungsten, CHOCDOG tungsten. I really, really enjoy using it. It's like I said, it's the only tungsten I use anymore. So anytime you see me flipping a Texas rig, that's what it is. I'd highly recommend you guys go check out Pattern Tackle. I know he carries a bunch like Duo Realis baits and stuff like that as well, and some of these bigger swim baits. Carries these guys if you want to pick one up. That's a great place to do it. All right, now real quick, I want to jump into some of my favorite moments of the year. I've got 3 different clips to show you. And starting off with my third favorite moment of the year would have been whenever I first figured out the frog bite on Bull Shoals during that Moyak event to get that win. That was kind of a complete turnaround in my day. This frog bite that I'm about to show you was the one that kind of kicked it all off, and the one that led to one of the 2 wins of this season. So we'll jump into that clip. All right, so now we'll go ahead and jump into my second favorite uh, moment of the season, and that was at the Wapapello event. It was after a long day of not even getting a bite, and I thought I saw some ripples back on real shallow in the water. To me, it looked like a bass chasing a bluegill off the bed. But it was way back. I made like a perfect skip back there on a little jig and landed it right on the bed. It took a couple tries, but once I got it on the bed, immediately got picked up, set the hook, brought it in, and it ended up being a great big bass and ended up winning me the big fish of the tournament. Put me in 11th place, and if I didn't catch that fish, I would have skunked and definitely wouldn't have won the Angler of the Year. So that was another season-saving moment. It happened in April, super early in the year, but it was super important to get that fish. So we'll jump into that clip right now. And coming out as my favorite moment of the 2025 season, it was at Stockton Lake with the Kayak Anglers Missouri. I ran into my buddy Bryson there. He launched at the same ramp as me, and this was, I don't know, 7 hours into the day. I think he had one fish on the board. He was really struggling, and I was doing quite well at the moment. But he come along, we visited for just a couple of minutes, and I was trying to describe to him what the schools looked like, but he'd never seen one before, so he wasn't really picking up what I was trying to explain. And then they popped up right in between us, and so then for the remaining hour of the tournament, we got to run around chasing these schools together. Both of us catching fish on the spook. He had never thrown a spook before that moment either, I don't believe. So it was just an awesome way to end that day, and definitely the most memorable moment of the season, and a lot of fun because it was just awesome getting to see him catch him that way and getting to experience it and have a lot of fun at the end of a really tough day for him, and it helped lead to my other win of the season. So it was pretty special. So we'll jump into that real quick.
There they are, buddy. Put a spook in them. Or your glide or something. Oh my God, there you go, buddy. Let him run. Let him run if he needs to.
Alrighty, well that pretty well wraps up my 2025 recap. It was probably a little bit longer than I intended it to be, but it was a pretty awesome year, and I wanted to share that and share some moments of that with you guys. This next season, we'll do a real quick look at the next season. I'm fishing every Camo event, every Moyak event. I'm fishing the team series this year with my buddy Adrian in Moyak. I'll be fishing the grassroots events. I'm only going to do 4 of those, just enough for AOI. And then some onlines, I think, stuff like that. So it'll be a similar load as last season. More entry fees, but a lot of them are doubled up, stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun rolling into this season. Got some big goals this year. I would love to go back-to-back for Camo AOI. I'm shooting for that grassroots AOI. I think I should be able to do pretty well on that. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a new tournament series popping up where you can't use any electronics and no motors. So it fits me perfect. And then for Moyak, my goal is to crack into the top 5 AOI. I do get to practice for both Moyak and Camo this year. I think like 3 events a piece that I get to practice for. So hopefully that can improve some of my worst scores and get me up into that top 5 this season. So thank you guys so much for tagging along all season long. thank you if you made it to the end of this video. Thank you. I know it's probably pretty long. I really appreciate all the support that I've gotten from you guys throughout this whole season, and let's keep it rolling into 2026.